We're now live.
Good evening and welcome to members, officers, the press and members of the public for joining us today for today's Cabinet meeting. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to everyone viewing on YouTube. Councillors unable to join the meeting in person are able to join remotely, however they will not be able to vote and their attendance won't be officially recorded. The Mayor, Roxana Hughes, is unable to attend physically this evening because she's self-isolating from being pinged by the COVID-19 app, but she is joining via Zoom. The Mayor therefore will be able to participate in debates, but she will not be able to vote. In line with the Council's scheme of delegation, the Mayor has confirmed that Cabinet can exercise its delegated powers in her absence and the meeting can proceed. Accordingly, can I ask members to confirm that I have been appointed to chair this meeting in the Mayor's physical absence? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
You're very quiet, Charlene.
Am I quiet?
Yeah.
Speak up.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Just.
Yeah, okay. I will speak up for you. Brilliant. Thank you very much. With regards to meeting etiquette, please can I ask that you indicate that you wish to speak by either raising your physical hand if you're in the room or your virtual hand if you're participating via Zoom. I request that everyone physically present continues to wear their face mask until they are invited to speak. After you've finished speaking, please recover your face. As a reminder, please can I ask members and officers to introduce themselves when speaking. So we'll move to the agenda now. So item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Chair Jane, Councillor Attle will be joining late.
Have you got that? Yep.
Yes, apologies some councillors, and Jahan.
Brilliant, thank you. There are no other apologies. There are no minutes of the previous meeting to be agreed at this meeting. Minutes for the 7th of September and today's meeting will be presented at the 5th of October Cabinet meeting. So item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
The chair.
No, and I don't have any myself. Brilliant, thank you. Item 3, appointments to outside bodies. I don't believe there are any appointments to outside bodies this evening, but Mayor Hughes, are there appointments? Yes.
Darren.
Sorry, Chair, I think there may be some background noise. Okay, may I speak now, Chair?
May, yes.
Thank you very much. No, there are no appointments that I'd like to announce this evening. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the substantial part of the agenda this evening. Agenda item 4, with the first report is supporting the delivery of affordable housing in Newham acquisition strategy. So I'd like to hand over to the Mayor to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Chair. And at appropriate junctures, through the Chair, I'd like to invite Councillor Shaban Mohammed as Cabinet Member for Housing Services, given the critical importance of this paper as it pertains to his portfolio area on housing services, and Councillor Terry Paul, given the interface between housing delivery, housing services and the finance component of the acquisition strategy as set out in this report. I'd also like to just draw colleagues' attention to the recommendations before I elaborate on the broad thrust of this paper. And I just wanted to advise the Chair on matters pertaining to the recommendations where it says delegate authority to a corporate director of resources in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services. I would like to move an amendment so that those relevant sections of the recommendations read as follows: delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Resources and the Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy and Housing Delivery in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services and the Cabinet Member for Housing Services, so that both parts of the executive and the corresponding parts of the council in operational terms are involved in this important critical area. So just by way of overview, all members of the Cabinet present at tonight's meeting will be acutely alert to the reality that Newham is at the front line of the desperate housing crisis that is afflicting so many families, not only in Newham but across London and indeed in other major cities in this country. We are in a situation where we have a significant number of residents on our housing waiting list, and moreover we have amongst the highest numbers, or levels should I say, of households living in temporary accommodation, and the impact that that has on those families, including children. Part of our intended approach, as outlined in the housing delivery strategy that was approved by Cabinet a few months ago, is the crucial element of the acquisition strategy. The amount of resource that the council is expending in placing families that find themselves in a very challenging and difficult situation with regards to becoming homeless or being in vulnerable circumstances that leads them to being placed in temporary accommodation is acute in this borough, and the pressures on our budgets and finances is similarly acute. For us to approach this in the systemic way that we intend, and as outlined in the housing delivery strategy, also requires an approach that enables us to place families in properties that we have purchased, instead of relying heavily on the inefficacies of the market through temporary accommodation, through either landlords or hotels. The particular features of this paper set out that the acquisition strategy, which is a core element of dealing with housing demand and a response to temporary housing accommodation, is the acquisition of street properties up to a total of 500 from the open market by the council, which are subsequently leased through a limited liability partnership on a bulk purchase basis, and the units are leased back to the limited liability partnership entity, which then lets the homes to local residents. The limited liability partnership entity that I refer to could include, for instance, Poplo Homes, the registered provider entity that has been established under the auspices of Poplo Living, the council's wholly owned housing delivery company, and that will enable some significant advantages for the council. One will be able to rent these houses to those residents facing vulnerable and difficult circumstances and assured short hold tenancies, but no doubt Councillor Shabar Mohammed will illuminate and elaborate on that. And then the potential for the council to recycle a proportion of our retained right to buy receipts in this effort in terms of the investment required for these purchases. So at that juncture, I'm going to conclude, and through the chair, if I may pass over to Councillor Shabar Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair. And I think the word I'm going to use is commitment. And I think when this administration came in 2018, we were committed to delivering more housing for our residents, getting our temporary accommodation down and getting our waiting list down. And I think this is this paper sets out what we want to do and drive our waiting list down. And I think it gives us more opportunity to deliver on that. And again, it's about bringing more affordable homes, or in more affordable homes, and I'm really grateful for this collaboration with finance and all our housing colleagues that actually got together and delivered on this. But I think the main thing is it's going to make sure that we have good quality, affordable accommodation for all our residents. So now I'm going to pass on to Councillor Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed, and thank you, Mayor. Just to add to both the Mayor and Councillor Mohammed's comments, I just want to say pay tribute to the officers behind this. As I think, Councillor Mohammed, I think in a year we've managed to turn this around and managed to, do it on a monthly basis. So I just pay tribute to the officers behind this. It's been a lot of work. There is much to do, but I think, as Councillor Mohammed said, this shows our commitment to our intent, and it shows what we can do when we put our mind to it and do things in a different way. So I want to say, Chair, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I don't know if any of the officers wish to add anything. Comrade Hall.
Thank you very much. I won't say anything. I do think, though, given clearly as has been described, this is a really important transaction. Absolutely focused on the important housing priorities of the borough. It is, of course, a complex transaction. I do think it would be helpful for Cabinet just to hear for a couple of minutes from Andrew Ireland on some of the risks that are inherent in this and how those are being mitigated, just to make sure that we've properly dealt with those at the meeting and made sure that Cabinet has got the right advice in front of it for making such a key decision. So if that's all right, we could just bring Andrew Ireland in for a couple of minutes just to highlight a couple of the key risks that are inherent in this and the good practice in place to try and make sure that we mitigate those.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Comrade. Andrew, could you introduce yourself for speaking?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Andrew Ireland, Director of Strategic Investments. So I just wanted to talk through the main 4 risks that we identified in section 9.16 of the paper, both the risks and the mitigants that we've included as well. So the first risk that we've identified is the possible lack of future demand for housing. We believe that the risk of this occurring is pretty low. We're looking at a programme of acquiring 500 homes in this programme versus the current demand level of about 5,600 on the temporary accommodation, overnight temporary accommodation issue. I think that proportionally, the number of homes versus the current demand is very low. We also have the ability to mitigate that risk by changing or reallocating the homes from affordable homes to key worker. If needed, that would result in a higher rent level and additional headroom against the debt commitments that the council has and a greater return into the LLP. So those two are the kind of main risk mitigants against that identified risk. The second risk that we've identified is the actual insufficient availability of stocks or homes within the borough at a desired price for the council to buy. We've done a fair amount of research in advance of writing this paper and identified that there is currently sufficient stock. However, the programme is to last over a period of 48 to 50 months on a staggered fashion. And within the modelling, we factored in an element of price growth to account for any upward movement in pricing in the market. In addition to that, we've also looked at stock or available homes both within the borough and in neighbouring boroughs to provide the council with additional flexibility during this acquisition programme. So we think that those elements sufficiently mitigate against that identified risk. Also, I guess I should say at this point, the reason for staggering the acquisition programme and not buying 500 homes as one block, during the early stages of the programme is to ensure that we don't have any market distortion in pricing. So there's a necessity to do it in a smooth fashion over that period of 48 to 50 months that I mentioned. The third key risk that we've identified within the paper is that of the relationship between future income levels, the level of rent that the council is receiving, and the relationship with debt servicing cost. So we've attended to this issue in a couple of different ways. So we've suggested or recommended a funding mix, and that is to ensure that we've used inflation or a proportion of inflation-linked debt, which is generally cheaper than fixed-rate debt, to reduce the cost of debt servicing in the early days. We've also, one of the inherent characteristics of doing that is an assumption that over time, rent levels will increase to marry or track in parallel with the debt servicing cost, the indexation of the debt servicing cost. And to ensure that we have an element of protection against inflation, we've suggested a blended funding structure, so an element of both fixed rate debt and inflation linked debt. So that reduces the impact of inflation volatility by about a third on the council. We've also included a cap, so a maximum level on the amount that the debt servicing cost can rise each year. And that's generally pegged at 4 to 5%. So that stops it going up more than expected amounts and allows us to forecast with a fair degree of certainty over a long period of time. The fourth risk is that of the impact of operational costs. So when we analysed the net discount or the discount from gross rental income to net rental income, it was identified that operational costs, the element apportioned to operational costs was greater than the debt servicing allocated to either fixed rate debt or inflation linked debt. And therefore it forms a substantial part of the costs associated with this transaction and this structure. 60% of those costs, though, relate to property management and overheads, which are in the influence of the council, and they could be pegged to LHA, the annual uplift in LHA, which limits that ability for them to lose their pegging or their tracking against the increase in income. In addition, as I've said before, there is the possibility to increase the level of rental income coming into the council by potentially reallocating some of the homes if that was necessary to either key worker or discount market rent, which gives us the flexibility to ensure that the structure has the robustness that it at no point is the council needing to subsidise it. In addition to that, we have to keep close management and oversight of the operational costs, and that's generally done through the contractual arrangement, between the council and the managing agent, with a set uplift in the management cost pegged to the rental income, so the two track in parallel. And in addition to that, maintenance of the actual assets, the portfolio of homes that we acquire, will be attended to through both a substantial amount of refurbishment that we factored into the front of the model to get them up to a good quality, and also the building up of a life cycle fund that allows us to continue to invest in the properties during the duration of the lease period, and close monitoring by the council. So those are the four main risks worth highlighting to the audience, and also the mitigating actions that we're taking against them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Andrew. Do any members have any?
Chair, knowing the recommendations, can I move an amendment in the recommendations?
Yeah, we'll do it just prior to us doing the recommendation. But
thank you, Chair. Can I first of all thank Mayor, Councillor Terry Paul and Councillor Shaban Mohammed for this excellent joint work across the departments, and certainly officers for looking at this in a very innovative way, which is something that's going to help us in the long run to reduce the dependency and also reduce our cost in the long run. Just a couple of quick questions. In the table on page 8 or 16, you seem to be assuming that initially first 2 years we'll buy more properties outside Newham, and then later on it kind of tapers off. I'd just like to know firstly, what rationale, is there any rationale in terms of market assessment, market condition, which may have led us to conclude that we will actually buy or acquire these properties in those proportions? And secondly, I just wonder, in terms of the business model, how financially viable it is? And is there a minimum or maximum parameters within which we can actually evaluate our success of this whole venture, if I can call it? And third point is that we're going for 40 million of potential borrowing. Is that going to be at the start of the project or somewhere during the life of this project? Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. If I can deal with some overall remarks, I'll ask Andrew to come in. In terms of the split, there is a model, there is a spreadsheet, and Andrew could be a bit more technical than that because I have seen it, so it is there. In terms of what we've got here, over the lifetime, what we've projected, there are a number of, in four figures, properties we're looking at for the period of time, and various deals, or some are more able to be successful in the short term, some are more out there. And I think it's having a borrowing requirement which allows us to turn it on and on. As you'll see, there's a paper coming forward latterly next couple of weeks about us seeking to do some more borrowing. It's not all our borrowing requirement, it's some of the borrowing requirement. And I think we're keen to do the borrowing as and when, as to where we need it. With regards to the point about outer borough, I'll let perhaps Andrew answer the technical question, and also perhaps Andrew on the sort of drawdown of the capital, the question to Councillor Zulfikar. Let's call it drawdown of capital, if you can answer that question.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. I'll happily answer those three in order. So the order in which and the location of which the homes are bought is predominantly driven by the market research we did on availability of homes currently in the market and price. So it's a mixture of the both, and there's no more science behind it than that, trying to ensure that we can identify the homes that fit our criteria and the location of those homes, and we get value for money, so they're priced at the right level. Success factors, I think that if we can acquire the homes in line with our kind of forecasting at the rate that we want for the price that we want, that would be a kind of a key success factor in my mind. The ongoing management and operation of the LLP that we set up will be, of continual note and reporting back to the council and the local authority. And we will have success factors or KPIs built into the management agreement that allows us to ensure that those homes are managed in line with the council's expectations as well. I would hope there would be some kind of ancillary good news stories of people moving into better quality accommodation for a longer period of time, and feeling more at home in the kind of quality of the properties that we are acquiring and putting into the portfolio. Your point around PWLB borrowing. So the way that the structure will work is that the money will be lent into the LLP for the acquisitions in tranches, and then that money will be repaid by the institution. So it will be drawn, repaid numerous times as we build up the stock of homes. So I guess, yes, it will be drawn at the beginning and then continuously throughout the arrangement until the end when it will be repaid.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for that. Just a couple of clarification. I think one point I was trying to make was, is there a minimum threshold in order for this business model to be viable? And if there is such thing, what it is? If it's maximum, obviously we're going to love that. But if there's a minimum threshold, that's number one. And secondly, you mentioned just now the drawing of the potential borrowing and actually giving it to the partner. What criteria is going to be used when we're going to be allocating the additional funding at different stages in the life of this project?
Sorry, Councillor Zulfikar, could you ask me the first question again, please?
First question, basically, in terms of business model, I just wonder whether there is a minimum threshold, which is kind of like, if I can call it break-even point, which is we must have X number of properties in order for this model to be financially viable, and then either maximum, which is going to be clearly far more beneficial for us over the long run.
Okay, so no, fundamentally no. The structure will generally work, I guess, once we draw down the first full tranche, so that we can cover the operational costs, and then it generally washes its face or meets break even thereafter. There's an upper limit, I guess, depending on the availability of homes on the market. So what we don't want to do is to be, as I said, distorting the price, ever overpaying for a property. And therefore, there might be the need for us to extend the program if that's the case. But, we don't need to get to 500 properties for it to break even or to meet that minimum threshold. Hopefully that answers your question.
Conrad, do you want to add anything to that?
Just a couple of points to add, if I may. So on that point, I mean, of course you're right, Councillor. I mean, this is a complicated structure, and I mean, you wouldn't do this to state the obvious to buy one property, because the overhead cost of the structure would simply be impractical. But given everything we know about housing demand and indeed supply in the borough and neighbouring areas, we're very confident of being able to get up to that minimum scale, and then beyond it in the terms set out in the report. To your other point, Councillor, earlier around financial success factors, I think really the best way to think about that is to look at the metrics that we've set out in the financial implications of the report. Clearly, for a major transaction like this, we'll keep a very close eye on those, and through the open and transparent financial monitoring, we'll report back on how we're doing against those metrics, and so we'll be able to demonstrate, we would very much hope that we're beating the targets in there, or indeed, if any of the risks that Andrew's referred us to do come to light, what effect on those metrics and how we're then responding in order to get us back on track. So that's why we set those numbers out in some detail, to see precisely what numbers to hold us to on this. The other point, just more generally, just to emphasise, because you did raise the point about location of units. I just want to be very clear for anybody listening. Yes, we are not limiting purchases just only absolutely to within the London Borough of Newham, but there is no question in this of us going, as some boroughs have chosen to do, and purchasing properties miles and miles outside of the area. Where we talk about outside of London Borough, we're talking about neighbouring boroughs only, rather than as some boroughs have chosen to do, purchasing properties considerably outside of the area. So I just thought I'd emphasise that point for those watching this broadcast. I hope that's helpful.
Brilliant. Thank you, Conrad. Sure. Yeah, excellent. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Well, we'll move to the recommendations. Councillor Mohammed, you... Yeah,
I don't know, an amendment. So I just wanted the amendment to read: the corporate director of corporate resource and corporate director of inclusive economy and housing, in consultation with the lead for finance and corporate services for housing lead. I want that to be added in to the recommendations.
Which number is that, just so that we can...
Yeah.
You have that?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay. Murphyaz.
Just really to elaborate on my comments in my introductory remarks with regards to the amendments to the recommendations which have been formally proposed by Councillor Shaban Mohammed, and just really to clarify why I think this is quite fundamental. We're talking about housing and we're talking about acquisitions to meet strategic housing delivery requirements in order to enable people to have some stability with regards to their housing needs, and this needs to be understood in the context of our broader ambition for housing delivery and housing security in this borough. And it's important that, notwithstanding the financial aspects of this acquisition strategy and all the detail and the complexity that has been highlighted by the Director of Resources and Andrew Ireland, fundamentally these are homes that we're purchasing, or properties that we're purchasing, that people will be making into their homes, albeit temporarily. And it's important that an understanding of the housing need calibrates thinking with regards to purchases. And I think that it's important that both the Corporate Director of Resources, in addition to the Corporate Director for Inclusive Economy and Housing, are liaising with the respective cabinet members for finance and corporate services, as well as the cabinet member for housing services in regards to this. Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And just so that members of the public are aware, because the Mayor is not physically present, although she she put the amendment earlier on in the meeting, it doesn't technically count. So us in the room have done so. So we've accepted that. Is that accepted, everybody?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, now to the recommendations. So on page 10, going through to page 11, there's a number of recommendations that you can all see in your books there. So can I go round and Councillor Lee Parkway?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Lewis?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Mohammed?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Beckles?
Chair.
Councillor Assar?
Agreed.
Councillor Ali? Councillor Paul?
Agreed, Chair.
And Councillor Charlene McLean also agrees. Thank you very much. So moving on to, thank you, officers. Moving on to the next agenda item, we have item 4, supporting the delivery of no, we haven't, I've read that one. We have Popular Living Business Plan 2021-22, approval and associated questions. So I will hand over back, I believe, to the Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. So as mentioned in the previous agenda item, Popular Living is the recalibrated, repurposed, the council's wholly owned housing delivery company. And it is enabling us to marshal forward in the delivery of a whole series of important manifesto commitments. Primarily, number one, the delivery of 1,000 homes at social rent levels that will be started by the end of my first 4 years in office, and all being well, long may that continue for at least another 4 years. Apologies, officers and cabinet members, I'm only jesting. But the other manifesto commitment, of which we have a democratic mandate and which is set out very clearly in the manifesto, is the addressing of the long-standing and vexed issue of the Carpenters estate, which was left languishing, as were the residents living in that neighbourhood, as a consequence of the arguably ineptitude, or I can say that, of the previous administration. So Popular Living is supporting our 1,000 social, 1,000 homes at social rent levels, as well as having been appointed the development management company for the Carpenters estate. This particular report seeks approval for the Popular Living or Group business plan. Elsewhere, we have spoken about Popular Living and its ongoing evolution from what it was before as an entity to what it is now, very much kind of, marshalling or being driven to enable us to be at the forefront of municipal house building. But this paper essentially sets out the Popular Group business plan, and it's the first business plan to be considered since the rebranding of the entity to Popular Living. It was previously called Red Door Ventures, a label concocted by the previous council, and also since the approval of the registered provider entity that's part of the Popular Living family, which will be the which has been approved by the regulator of social housing. So Poplo presently as an entity, either through Poplo Living and soon under the auspices of Poplo Homes, presently has nearly 600 homes under construction. In the previous financial year, will be completing over 200 more affordable rented homes this financial year. And this plan, as set out in this paper, elaborates on how Poplo Living, working closely with the council as its sole shareholder, we own Poplo Living. We are essentially the parent company, the mothership, and we've given birth to it. We'll continue to build on this success to deliver an increased supply of high quality new homes that our residents can afford, and regenerate neighbourhoods in a way that we aspire under this administration. And so this report seeks approval for funding Poplar Homes to purchase 112 Plasto package affordable homes from Poplo Living via the council, via council loans and GLA grant, and a similar arrangement to purchase from the Didsbury development a package of affordable properties by Poplar Homes, the registered provider entity sitting within the Poplar group, as it were, as approved by a previous decision that we made formally at Cabinet back in October 2020. So I'm going to conclude there, and through the chair, if I may invite Conrad Hall to add any other words, but also, if I may, Chair, also invite David Hughes, who's the Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy and Housing. I know that in the context of the operational distinction of the council, there's in terms of externalized entities that we've created as a council, oversight is provided by Conrad Hall, but I think it's also important to hear from the corporate director responsible for strategic housing delivery, because it will enable a more informed decision that will be made this evening by cabinet members present physically. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Conrad.
Thank you, Chair. So clearly, Populo is growing substantially. It's a vehicle through which the council is funneling significant investment. So, as you would expect, there are strong governance, financial governance arrangements in place both within the company, with a strong independent board, and also with the council, as Mayor Fiaz explains, as the ultimate owner of the company, exercising oversight of what the company does. So, for example, Deborah Heenan, the chief executive of the company, who's on the call, attends a monthly meeting with myself and Dave Hughes, corporate director of Inclusive Economy and Housing, and others, precisely so that we can exercise that oversight of the company to make sure that things are happening as they should do, and indeed to hear about the many developments that are going on. Because as the Mayor says, although my personal belief is the finance and the governance, it is really important to remember that this is all about housing and improving services for residents. I think the only other thing that I would just add in terms of the technicalities of the report, if I've done the sort of assurance about how we oversee these major programmes, is just to remind cabinet members that the business plan does two things. I mean, one, it is a conventional business plan. It says what the company is going to do, exactly as you would expect in any well-run company. It also, because of that nature between the parent, the council, and the subsidiary, the company, has a specific legal context in effect. I think the simplest way to put that is that the company, as the business plan is approved, can do anything that's in the business plan and cannot do anything that's not in the business plan. And so precisely by agreeing this, we set out what our expectations of the company are and what the limitations on what it can do are. And of course, there's a mechanism then to vary that as and when the company, as it frequently does, comes up with new and innovative ideas. So that's the sort of legal form of this document, but I don't want to take away from the important housing part of it. So perhaps I'd be an appropriate moment to bring Dave Hughes in, if that's all right, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you, Comrade. Dave?
Thank you, Chair. It's Dave Hughes, Corporate Director for Inclusive Economy and Housing. And as per the last report regarding acquisitions, this is driven very much by our housing strategy and our housing priorities. With the acquisitions, that's about increasing the supply of affordable housing. This is another part of our blended approach towards that, whereby we're using our partnership with Popular Homes, a company that is effectively owned, controlled by the council, although brings in great expertise from private sector in actually bringing forward delivery. And we have what we call a blended approach, where we actually use Populo for certain sites and certain projects, like the Carpenters, as the Mayor mentioned, and certain challenging sites, infill sites, and other sites for affordable housing, where Populo bring their expertise and efficiency to actually bring those sites forward. So that very much complements our own in-house delivery as well. As the Mayor said, this is part, Populo contributes towards the manifesto commitment of 1,000 new homes in the borough. And we've successfully drawn down and on target to meet all of our targets for affordable housing delivery and the drawdown of grants from the GLA. We've also got Deb Heenan with us, so if appropriate, are there any questions you have about the business plan, Deb is on hand to answer them. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave. Mayor Fiaz, I see you've raised your virtual hand. Did you wish to add something?
If I may, thank you very much, Chair. Look, I just really wanted to draw members of the Cabinet and the wider executive, and also indeed members of the public or press that may be watching this session of formal Cabinet this evening. Please read the detail of the Cabinet papers, the way in which we've recalibrated our housing delivery company, as it is now known as Populo Living, has been so significant in our ability and our demonstration of marshalling our passion and our interest and our commitment in genuinely affordable and high quality housing delivery for our people. And the impact and achievements of Populo Living and soon Populo Homes should not be underestimated. It frankly is our Rolls Royce in the council in terms of housing delivery, and what it has achieved in the short time that it's been required to repurpose for the democratic mandate that we secured back in May 2018 in terms of delivering genuinely affordable housing that our people can afford. The work that it's doing, the work that it will be doing has been incredible, ingenious, it's pioneering, and other London boroughs are looking at what we're doing here in Newham through Populo Living and through our ambition on housing delivery in the borough, and they are in awe. And I think this is a moment of celebration as well as acknowledgement of what we have collectively as an administration achieved so far, but there is more to do, because the housing crisis, as I said in a previous agenda item, is acute, and this is a really important element in addressing that. And through the chair, if you would kindly invite Deborah Heenan, who's the Chief Executive of Populo Living, to talk through some key headlines, that would be really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you for that contribution. Deborah, I don't know if you wish to make any brief remarks on this?
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly that we are now maturing into a team that is absolutely delivering, and as Conrad said in his opening remarks, we've got a very strong independent board with lots and lots of industry expertise that's helping that maturity enormously. And also the other maturity is in the relationship between ourselves and the council as part of the wider corporate family. So we're getting on with the delivery and are very, very busy, but very happily busy, and we will continue to be so. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions, members?
Question, I was just going to say, it's really good that we committed to delivering 1,000 new homes, and obviously wherever I go around the borough, I see all these coming up and these homes being built, and I think it's a really exciting time to not only be in housing services, but actually looking at these homes coming up and looking at our waiting lists. And the excitement for me is getting our waiting list down and fully committing, delivering these homes for our residents. And I've seen what Populo have done so far, and they've absolutely been amazing. And I think when our residents have gone into these homes, they've really appreciated these homes and really appreciated the hard work that goes into delivering. And I think it's that commitment that we've shown in 2018 when we promised to deliver on 1,000 new homes and remodelled our housing delivery company to make it meet the needs of our residents and really put housing at the heart of everything we do. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shabs. You're absolutely right. Okay, if there's no further questions, I'd just like to draw members' attention to page 49, the recommendations on page 49. Councillor Sarah Ruiz. Agreed. Councillor Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Beckles.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Paul.
Agreed.
Asa.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Zufka Ali's had to leave, so Councillor Charlie McLean, I agree. So that is all agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, moving to the next agenda item it's a housing day today. It's service maintenance and repair of passenger lifts in residential housing blocks. Councillor Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair. This report relates to the award of contracts for the service, maintenance and repair of passenger lifts in residential housing blocks. This contract will significantly improve the reliability of the passenger lifts and enhance the resident experience. This contract addresses the statutory duty that we have to maintain and service lifts within our housing blocks. These contracts will ensure a continuous provision of the service for our residents. This contract meets the priorities of climate change, community wealth building, and building communities to ensure quality improvements in housing provision. Thank you. And I think is it Darren and John on call?
Yeah, Darren.
Any questions?
Yeah, Darren, do you wish to add anything?
Nothing more to add, just to reinforce the words that the Councillor Mohammed sort of put forward. It's the re-awarding of the servicing and repair contract from the end of September.
Brilliant, thank you. Do any members have any questions?
Thank you. This is so well done to the housing team. Well done, chaps. It's just obviously could we not list the blocks of who's getting done and roughly when? I think this is such a good thing. Residents will go, okay, I'm in a block. Where's my block? When am I roughly getting done? So maybe that could be done if we were to, I don't know, press release or whatever the communications is, but we just let the residents know that A, their blocks on it, and B, when roughly within time they're going to get. So it's such a good news story. That's what residents would ask. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Assel.
Well, Councillor Paul slightly stole my thunder on that, because I think, just to comment there after his question, I think it's really easy, given the reports we've already had, and this seems like a smallish thing because we've been talking about big development, but actually, let's face it, 1,000 episodes of dramas and sitcoms over the last 50 years have been based around lifts and blocks of flats. These are things that are really important to people's day-to-day lives, particularly if you can't manage the stairs. And so I think actually this is shouldn't overlook just because it sounds quite technical, the importance of today's day.
Thank you. Councillor Ruiz.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I'm almost jumping the gun a little bit because I don't necessarily, because there is a list in our second report that we're taking this evening. lift refurbishment. So that's lift refurbishment, but this one's lift repair and maintenance.
Yeah.
So
we're replacing the second report is about lift replacement, and we listed the blocks on that. This is just when they break down, when we go out and repair them.
yeah, so, but yes, I understand the difference. I'm thinking, why have we got two reports on the same thing? So, okay, thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. So in effect, we don't really want a list in this.
No, because
this is a fundamental.
It does say maintenance.
Okay. Yep. Sure.
All right.
Thank you very much, Councillor Paul. Okay. If there's no more questions, do we go to the vote on this one then, please?
Yeah, this is good. Well done, Shabs.
So, yep, well done, Shabs. Recommendations on page 8. Agreed to award the contract. Councillor Mohammed.
Agreed. Sorry.
Councillor Beckles. Councillor Paul.
Agreed. It's a really good report. Thank you.
Councillor Assar. Councillor Roos.
Agreed.
Lee Parkway. Agreed. And Councillor Charlotte McLean agrees.
See.
Thank you very much.
Because I thought she was.
The next report, which is Shabs again, which is lift refurbishment programme with a list 2020 to 2030.
I think it's a lifting cabinet today, so.
Uplifting cabinet.
Yeah, uplifting. Right. This report relates to the award of contracts for modernisation of passenger lifts within the council-owned blocks of flats. Undertaking planned works of this type will significantly improve the reliability of passenger lifts and enhance the resident experience. It also reduces the demand for and the cost of responsive maintenance. Having a good quality, reliable lift is an essential requirement for residents living in our blocks of flats. Lifts are used daily by residents and visitors to enable quick and safe and efficient access to their homes. For those residents with limited mobility or young children, a good lift service is essential for their quality of life and well-being. These contracts will provide modern high-quality lifts which are reliable and provide high quality of service over many years and reduce maintenance costs. Contracts of this type demonstrate the council's commitment to improving the quality of housing and community investment.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it does what it says on the tin, but officers, is there anything you wish to add?
Nothing more to add.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Paul.
Just an observation, Chair. Can I thank Councillor Mohammed for putting Albury Moor Point #1 in lot 1. I really
Alphabetical order, Terry.
can't be alphabetical order. And it's really, in joking aside, obviously I've had for our last couple of years, I hope that lift has caused issues. So I thank you on behalf of those residents for putting us #1, even though it's an alphabetical list. And I thank you.
And I think what we've got to remember here is that we've got a very, very large capital programme in housing services where we're going to refurbish blocks and really bring our blocks up to fit and proper thingy and make sure that we're delivering for our residents and committed to having a good quality housing service for all our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Councillor Parkway.
Thank you, Chair. I guess just for the benefit of those and that don't have the papers, I guess Councillor Shaban, I was going to ask, what is the term in regards to the lifts, the refurbishment of the lifts? If you did them, for instance, this year, when would the next time be?
Don, do you want to come in on that, or Darren?
Yeah, this is a 2-year programme, so we'll be continuing this programme, and we'll be, as we do the condition surveys of the rest of the lifts and other blocks, we'll be coming back at a future point with the next phase. Okay, so
are you saying that you're not saying that the shelf lives of the lifts are 2 years, but
no, sorry,
this rolling programme, is that what you're saying?
Yes, this is the first phase of a full lift refurbishment programme. These lifts will be in there for years to come, but we'll be continuing to review the condition of all of our lifts, and there will be a rolling programme of refurbishment. So this is the first of a rolling programme.
Thank you. Excellent. Any more? No? Great stuff. Okay. The virtual hands. No. Okay, so I would like to draw members' attention to page 213 with the recommendations as set out. I'll read them out, this one. So, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to agree to award contracts for lift refurbishment as set out below. 2.1.1, Lot 1, including Aldermore Point, 4 blocks to Amalgamated Lifts Limited at a cost of £1,746,200. 2.1.2, Lot 2, 4 blocks to Emerald Elevators Limited at a cost of £1,306,562. And 2.1.3, Lot 3, 7 blocks to Apex Lifts Limited at a cost of £3,334,621. And 2.2, each contract will be the JCT intermediate contract with Contractors Design, ICD, 2016, with Newham's terms and conditions. The estimated start date for the contract is 1st November 2021 for a 2-year period. Is that agreed, Councillor Beckles?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Assa?
Agreed.
Councillor Paul?
Agreed.
Councillor Mohammed?
Agreed.
Councillor Lewis?
Agreed.
Councillor Lee Parkway?
Agreed.
Councillor Charlene McLean agrees. Thank you very much. Right, moving on. The next agenda item, which is Towards a Better Newham Quarterly Progress and Performance Report, April to June 2021. And that is the Mayor. Would you like to do some introductory remarks, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. So, colleagues, this report comes on the back of the end of year report that was presented to formal cabinet a couple of months ago, and it's the first quarterly report for the fiscal year 2021 to 22 in relation to the delivery of our Towards a Better Newham recovery strategy, which was, as you'll all be aware, adopted by Cabinet in November 2020, and it also provides an overview of the revised suite of key performance indicators updated to reflect the really important Newham outcomes-based framework that we've also approved in a previous cabinet meeting, should I say. It's set in the context of what we've all been experiencing over the past period since March 2020, the challenges as a consequence of the pandemic, and as we emerge and motor and marshal through with our recovery, we are very clear that the risks pertaining to COVID-19 have not gone away. Myself, the fact that I'm here virtually as opposed to physically is a demonstration of that. I got pinged, as you mentioned in your opening remarks to the meeting last night, and I've taken a test, and hopefully all being well, I'll be cleared. But the paper before you demonstrates that whilst we've been responding with the challenge of COVID-19 through an inspirational effort of mobilisation and collaboration with our residents and communities over the past 19 to 20 months or so, we've remained focused on our vision for delivering the organisational and transformative change that we have embarked on since May 2018, and as set out in the iteration presented before you and previously under the auspices of Towards a Better Newham strategy and the action plan. And so this paper is very much part of that process of reporting back in a transparent and candid way the progress against the Towards a Better Newham ambition, and it's fundamentally our recovery mission. And this paper, follows through on the commitment that we made back in 2018 to provide public updates on the improvements that we're driving in the council, and to meet the commitment that we made back in early in the summer in July 2021, as mentioned, the annual report, to make sure that future reports are based on demonstrating measurable outcome-based progress. So not only are we, through this report, demonstrating that measurable outcomes progress in relation to the new series of key performance indicators, but also how we're delivering on that systemic change as set out in our outcomes-based performance framework. And when we talk about systemic change, we talk about all of those enduring features that have challenged and have held our residents back in this borough for way too long. Issues, systemic issues relating to either housing or relating to the economic marginalisation of our residents of this borough, particularly some of those groupings or cohorts of residents, be they women, be they residents of colour, communities of colour. And following the approval of Cabinet of the broad approach, i.e. the outcomes-based approach that very much underpins our outcomes-based performance framework, the full details of progress are set out in the body of this report that provides the progress that we've achieved over the last quarter. And the main highlights are number one, the next iteration of the outcome measures. We need to demonstrate in qualitative terms how we are doing and how we are progressing, not only for us internally, but also more importantly for the residents of Newham, because we are here in the interests of serving them in our public civic duty to serve them and improve their outcomes and their livelihoods. And the outcome measures, as now iterated in this report, are focused on understanding the health and well-being and happiness impacts of everything that we're doing, because as you'll all know, in the Towards a Better Newham Recovery Strategy and Action Plan, our key primary measure of economic success is the health and well-being and happiness of our residents, and that's a golden thread that we have weaved through the entirety of the organisation and everything that we do in all the respective and different corporate directors, and that all portfolio leads, including myself, are held to account for. And it enables residents to be able to track what we are doing on that front. And the report that's presented to you highlights that 85% of the actions are either on track or have been completed. And that's a pretty phenomenal direction and position to be in, given the impact of COVID-19 and the significant challenges that presented to us. And then finally, for the first time, the new iterated set of Towards a Better Newham key performance indicators that are very much couched in what I said earlier, the outcomes-based performance framework, designed to demonstrate the progress in a meaningful, material way, and that we have made on behalf of the residents of Newham, and how the money that we are spending contributes towards those intentions that we have committed to. And what this report sets out is that 69% of those indicators that have been recalibrated have evolved based on that outcomes frame, have either moved in a positive direction during Q1 of this financial year, or on new indicators which are either being baselined or which are still being developed. So in sum, it's really positive news, and it's a demonstration of our commitment as an administration, but more importantly, as an organisation, of the degree to which they have pivoted in response to our demands as an administration. And I'd like to take, as part of my final comments, this opportunity to thank the entirety of the organisation, but in particular the new, or not so new, but the refreshed corporate management team and the chief executive for their efforts on this front. All of them, and the chief executive in particular, are very much exposed to my ongoing kind of demands for improvements on behalf of Newham residents. And I appreciate that it must be quite a hard gig to occupy on that front. And I very much appreciate every single individual's hard work in meeting our requirements, my requirements on behalf of Newham residents. And no doubt in the coming period and in the remaining phase of this financial year, all of us as elected representatives that are the leadership of this administration should be deeply indebted and grateful for the efforts that they are making on our behalf in operational terms. So I'll conclude there, Chair, and through you pass over to Jessica.
Thank you, Mayor Hughes. Jessica.
I'm not sure there's much for me to add, Chair, to that very comprehensive introduction and very kind words from the Mayor, which I know officers will appreciate, because this, although it's presented by myself and James Partis as Director of Change, it is very much the result of a council-wide effort. So I'd really echo the Mayor's comments on that. It was all the sum of everybody's work, and all of the work that we've done on the new outcomes framework. It is based, it's not an academic exercise, it's based on all of the strategies that are underway throughout the council to deliver for residents. I would like to add to the Mayor's tribute to particularly call out the work by the performance and research teams collaboratively to look at how we can develop new ways of measuring the impact of all of that work. And I think that will be the next really important report at the end of the year. Will be being able to measure through the new outcomes survey and other measures that are being developed, that's outlined in the framework that's in Appendix 1 for your approval tonight, that will show the impact of all of those strategies and actions on residents' well-being. So that will be where the real proof of the pudding will be in that section, but a lot of work done to get us to this point, which hopefully gives us a good baseline for moving forward through the rest of the year. I'll pause there and happy to take questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No questions on this one, but thank you very much. I've had a read of the report and it's really thorough, so well done for the Mayor's sentiments. Okay, members, if I could ask you to turn to page 224 and we'll go to the vote on this. Recommendations 1, the reasons set out in the report and its appendices. The Cabinet is recommended to note the proposed measures and baselines for the outcomes framework and further work planned at Appendix 1. Note and consider the progress as at Q1 2021-22 and the corporate delivery plan on pages 9 to 22. Note the Q1 2021-2022 report on the new corporate level performance measures at Appendix 2, and agree responses to the request for amendments and changes to the corporate delivery plan outlined in Appendix 3. So we will go to Councillor Asser.
Well, that's surprised, but agreed.
Councillor Paul.
Agreed.
Oh, Councillor Beckles.
Agreed.
Councillor Lee Parkway.
Agreed.
Councillor Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Lewis.
Agreed.
And Councillor Charlie McLean agrees. So that's passed. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item is Newham's COVID-19 pandemic response. Easy for me to say. Which is, it's the Mayor. Oksana, over to you, please.
I'm so sorry, Chair, that I'm not there in person, and I don't mean to monopolise today's formal meeting of Cabinet, but this is, as you will appreciate, a very important paper, and it was really important for us similarly to present this to Cabinet, and this paper is also being introduced to full council next Monday to set out in line with our transparency and good governance agenda, what we've been doing as a council since the start of the pandemic here in the UK last March. So I'm really pleased to be introducing this Cabinet report on the Newham COVID-19 pandemic response. And before I kind of go into a little bit of the introductory detail, I just wanted to firstly, in a similar vein to what I said with regards to the Towards Better Newham quarter one report, officially and publicly convey my thanks and appreciation to the entirety of Newham Council staff, members of the public, Newham residents will have absolutely no idea the absolutely Herculean, I've even mispronounced that, efforts that they have, Herculean efforts that they have undertaken and still continue to do for Newham residents in the face of something that none of us ever envisaged that we would experience in our lifetimes, and none of us as members of the executive, and certainly me as the Mayor of Newham when I was elected back in 2018, ever imagined that I would have to deal with. So I want to formally pay tribute to every single member of Newham Council staff, and, you know, including the leadership of Althea Loderick, our Chief Executive, and all the members of the corporate management team for their diligence, their responsiveness and their agility in reassuring our resident community during a time that was so seismic and so life-changing in so many different ways, and in ways that we never anticipated. So this report sets out an update on how we responded to the COVID pandemic from March last year, and the scale of the council's response, but crucially our response in collaboration with our partners in the health service, our partners in our community, the voluntary sector, organisations that we have had to rightly lean on, because the situation as we were faced with as a consequence of COVID-19 meant that as a council we would never have been able to do it alone. And the report also sets out an update on how we will be responding to the next stage of the pandemic, both in economic and social terms. You will have all noted, no doubt, through your reading of the daily press over recent months, and actually from pretty early on, from the commencement of the pandemic here in the UK, the implications of long COVID. So the report sets out kind of how we're going to be responding to those features in the next stage of the pandemic as we ease out of the restrictions that were in place. And it also sets out the challenges that lie ahead as we progress with our recovery strategy and action plan as set out in the Towards a Better Newham documents, which we published last July. So the last report on the COVID-19 response was back in May 2020, and it's important that in the interest of transparency, we provide this update 16 months on. As mentioned, the pandemic has touched almost every aspect of our work, as well as our personal and professional lives. And we know that the pandemic is far from over. A case in point, me not being able to be there physically, I'm here remotely because I was pinged, as I've mentioned earlier. And we need to remain vigilant because we need to ensure that we continue being in a position to be able to support our residents and businesses and enable them to recover in what will be a very challenging period ahead. And I must reiterate my indebtedness to the council staff team in how they've responded and how we've responded as an administration in the face of the biggest health emergency that has faced not only the UK but the entirety of humanity in over a century. And as we articulated frequently during the height of the pandemic and the various waves that we had to manage and navigate, Newham has been particularly hard hit, given all the vulnerabilities and risks and exposure that existed prior to COVID-19 and the disproportionate impacts on our resident community in terms of case rates and numbers and numbers of deaths and the wider economic and social impacts. And so this report outlines the campaigning priorities we will be focusing on to tackle long-standing disadvantage and inequalities that have been exacerbated by COVID-19. And, briefly, making sure that we continue to address issues of poverty and inequality, systemic inequality, including racial inequality and gender inequality, and the inequality that our young people will face, because the economic impact of COVID-19 will particularly affect them, and our ongoing need to protect and promote employment rights for those working in our locality as part of our demonstration of being exemplary in this area and also setting a standard for the rest of the country and London in particular, and the way in which we're going to be pivoting our economy locally so that we are embracing fully not only our response to the climate emergency, but also our response to the national kind of call to action to a transition into a green economy that is going to be sustainable and fit for purpose for the future. And we need to future-proof Newham. And what we need to do and what has been set out in terms of our COVID-19 recovery mission is the requirement for us to incubate a local economy that is green, but also enables the proliferation of high-skilled jobs that commands those high wages, so that our residents are lifted out of poverty, but are also provided and exposed to the range of opportunities that their high-skilled knowledge economy and green economy affords. And then, this report fundamentally is not only a formal statement, again, of our ambition, but it also provides us with a really important opportunity for learning, because the report also sets out the response to a 360-degree review of what we did as a council as part of our new organisational culture, where we have now, or we're transitioning to becoming an organisation that is interested in learning, including learning from our mistakes so that we can improve and be better. And at this juncture, I would like to evoke the sentiments expressed by the founder and enabler of Apple, which is considered one of the world's most preeminent superstar firms, and what Steve Jobs, may he rest in peace, said prior to his demise, is that Apple succeeded because it had a operational practice whereby it would constantly cannibalize itself to improve and improve and improve. And so the 360-degree review is our manifestation of learning and improving and improving and improving, because ultimately we need to ensure that we improve for the benefit of our residents, because they deserve platinum, and platinum isn't necessarily about money. Platinum is about a state of mind, and for too long the residents of this borough have been ill served, and under this administration they are being served better. They may not necessarily feel it in the context of fly tipping or a whole host of other issues and areas that we are still fixing, but we are getting there, and I am proud to be leading this administration. I'm proud to be the political leader of this organisation and working with such a brilliant group of people that reflect a 5,000 strong workforce that make up this council, that are all committed to Newham residents. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Alfia, I'm not sure if you wish to add anything, or you're going to save it for council on Monday?
I'm not actually here on Monday, so you're
not. Oh.
No, I'm not. But I'll just say a few words. I couldn't really add an awful lot to that fulsome introduction by the mayor, which is really just to say that I echo the thanks the mayor has espoused to the staff and to our communities, but also to the political leadership, because I think however well or not we have performed in managing through this phenomenally, challenging time, it has been made an awful lot easier by having the support and the interest and the concern of the mayor and her administration. So without turning this into one big loving, I'll stop there. But thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Lee Parkway.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, I've got my hair in my eye, sorry. I don't really have a question. I guess I did want to just highlight a couple of things that I think we need to take into consideration. I remember back in March when we first had our first meeting regarding COVID and what now is the pandemic. And we had no idea what this would look like and no idea what we was entering into. However, I do want to just reiterate the thanks that Mayor has said in regards to all those that have put in a great effort to make sure that the people of this borough are looked after and have had the very best help they could possibly have in the midst of set of circumstances. But I also do want to just take the opportunity, as this is a public meeting, to thank all those volunteers that came out of their homes and put themselves at risk to help others that needed help more so than they did. And also take time to just remember all those people lost in the midst of COVID pandemic, and all those families, friends, colleagues that have now had to work in a different way because of that. So I just wanted to take the opportunity. But lastly, I do want to say one of the things that I wanted to, I guess, bring to the forefront today is that things didn't stop for the local authority. It continues. We still had social workers doing their work. We still had schools doing their work. We still had youth workers doing their work, adult social care and various others. That's just to name a few that continue to work through the pandemic to provide a service to families that was much needed, especially at a time when we all didn't know what we needed to be doing and how we needed to do it. And so I just want to just say, I guess, again, a massive thank you to those frontline workers, those that collected our bins, those NHS workers, the officers within the council that continued to work tirelessly through this pandemic in order to make sure that we was able to provide a service to the residents of Newham. So thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Colleen. Anyone else? Councillor Beckles.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's just to say this is a welcome report, and our pandemic response has been quite crucial, especially in areas like Custom House, which has been affected quite harshly by the pandemic, with the highest rate of furlough of any resident population across the borough. So as the Towards the Better Newham plan and our pandemic response is due to that community spirit, and also the council response, where communities and people and residents who are some of our poorest in the borough have been able to come together and have valued some of a lot of the work that's been done by the council. So it's thanks to our residents, and thanks to our officer corps who put together these plans, and it's thanks to the mayor for pulling all of us together and make sure that there wasn't a political as well as a corporate leadership in this. So this is a welcome document And I hope the residents of Newham, especially those in Custom House, value the work that's gone on by the organisation. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Councillor Beckles. Any other member wish to speak?
Feel almost obliged. No.
No? Okay, brilliant. So we will move to the vote on this. So the recommendations set out on page 5, 2.1. The reasons set out in the report appendices, Cabinet is recommended to note at 1.1, the key features of the new response to COVID-19 as detailed in the report, the outcomes of the 360-degree review and the lobbying and campaigning priorities arising from the pandemic outlined in section 7. Councillor Charlotte McLean agrees. Councillor Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Lee Parkway.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Ruiz.
Agreed.
Councillor Asser.
Agreed.
Councillor Beckles.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. We're nearly there. It's executive response to Scrutiny Commission COVID-19 review report and recommendations. And the lead member is the Mayor.
Hi there, Chair.
They're all rejoicing.
I am
Mayor.
so sorry that I can't be there with you in person, and I'll try to be really brief and not so animated.
Brilliant, thank you.
But really, just by way of follow-up from the previous agenda item. So just to clarify, this is a executive response to a really important series of interrogation or process of interrogation and inquiry by Overview and Scrutiny, specifically a task and finish group that Overview and Scrutiny set up with regards to COVID-19. And rightly, they scrutinised the council and the council's response to COVID-19. Just really to clarify at this juncture, that when we, stepped into the COVID-19 pandemic response back in March 2020, we were operating under the Emergencies and Contingencies Act regime that has been set up in response to critical emergencies as defined by the government on the basis of expert advice. And at that juncture, when that's initiated, emergency response falls into the operational command under the auspices of the Chief Executive and through a gold regime set up. So the scrutiny engagement on the council's response to COVID-19 needs to be understood within that frame. And so this paper basically sets out the executive's response to that COVID-19 kind of examination on part of scrutiny, and our response to a series of scrutiny points that were raised in their paper alongside the recommendations. And it needs to be read in conjunction with the previous paper in terms of our overall response to the pandemic. And we very much appreciate and welcome that scrutiny, oversight and interrogation, which was very thorough and focused particularly on the impact of COVID on our communities and our response, which was, as mentioned previously, supported by residents, the voluntary sector, businesses, and every single section of the community to help us all get through the pandemic. And the scrutiny task and finish group have made a series of helpful recommendations around improving our communications and our engagement work and our support that we provide to parents and schools and families, and our focus on supporting the most vulnerable, notwithstanding the pioneering stuff that we have done as a local authority in response to COVID-19. And I particularly wanted to cite the work that the Newham public health team have done on this front, with regards to our isolation support work, which was pioneering and the first in the country, whereby we provided financial support for those that may live in multi-generational households or in households where isolating is very difficult, and we provided them with accommodation in a hotel. You know, we were the first local authority in the country to do that, and we should never diminish our efforts and our innovations and our pioneering work on that front. And on this agenda item, I would particularly like to thank the Newham Public Health team, because I know they've worked so hard above and beyond what they've been expected to do because of their commitment to our borough and our people. And so the response that's been set out here highlights where we're already taking action in this areas and other actions that are planned in response to the recommendations. And, you know, as mentioned in the previous agenda item, you know, we're transitioning and we have become an organisation that is deeply appreciative of feedback because we are a learning organisation, and we very much welcome the contributions by Scrutiny, Task and Finish Group on COVID-19 on that front. So this paper sets out a coherent and comprehensive response, and I, through the chair, given my virtual presence at this meeting, would welcome the rest of Cabinet to formally note the response and the ongoing work against the recommendations made by the Overview and Scrutiny Task and Finish Group. And finally, just to thank Overview and Scrutiny and the chair of the Task and Finish Group for their interrogation and diligence in scrutinising what we're doing. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add, Jess?
No, nothing to add, Chair. I think the management sort of response, an executive response, is all set out in Appendix 2 for members to consider.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? No? Okay. So if we turn to page 341, the recommendations set out. We'll move to the vote. 2.1, that Cabinet note the ongoing work against the recommendations made.
Agreed.
Councillor Beckles?
Agreed.
Councillor Mohammed?
Agreed.
Parkway?
Agreed.
Councillor Assar?
Agreed.
Councillor Ruiz?
Agreed.
Councillor Charlene McLean also agrees. Thank you. So nearly there, 2 more to go. Annual report on customer complaints. Councillor Paul.
That's me, Chair. Thank you, Chair. This is the first annual report we've done for a number of years on our customer complaints, and it sets out the position as to where we are in terms of a baseline. For residents listening online, we had a slight reorganisation in 2019 in an attempt to improve the way we responded to residents when they contacted us in regards to complaints. As we can see in the report, obviously it does list the areas, and essentially it's about having a whole council approach of getting it right first time. And essentially this report really reflects back on our speed of response to that. What I will say, Chair, in terms of context, obviously what we've tried to do is what we are set out to do at the beginning of this administration is to really see the delivery of our services from the view of our residents and to produce a really great service. So to say, putting residents at the heart of all what we do. And this is what I would say, to be really honest, Chair, there's a lot of room for improvement, to be honest. It's about us being transparent. We're not hiding anything, and about highlighting the areas for us. And what I will say as us as a cabinet, it's in all our respective portfolios for us to impress on getting it right first time. It's not simply about the speed of the response, i.e. if we didn't have the complaint in the first time, and that's really where we should get to. But I'm willing to take any questions, and Jessica Crow is my director responsible for this area is there. But I think is not as, I wish it was better, to be honest, to be brutally honest to the residents listening here. But I think it just shows the transparency of us, of putting this report out there and not hiding away, or more importantly, shying from the challenges there in front of us. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Any questions?
No, Jess says.
Jess, did you have anything to add? Sorry, apologies.
No, that's absolutely fine. The only thing I'd add is just to endorse what Councillor Paul said, and to sort of draw members' attention to this section, and indeed the appendix, which shows all the different elements of work that is underway to improve the performance of our responses to residents. So the continuous improvement section and the report the appendix focusing particularly on the work underway in relation to housing repairs. So there is a significant amount of work underway right across the council to improve performance further. But I think this gives us a good good foundation on which to build, having got through some sort of upheavals and the introduction of a new system for managing all of those complaints. So I think we are well on the way, and I would hope that the report next year will show continued improvement and a significantly improved outturn overall. Thanks. Happy to take questions, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Ruiz, did you indicate you wish to ask a question?
Question, sort of, comment, sort of, because I think that Terry has almost underplayed it. I don't think people recognise how far we've come. So although you say it's not great, actually it's much better than we think, or we know that it was. I think that our responses from members' inquiries have greatly improved, not only in response time, but actually in quality. You're absolutely right. If we were getting things right first time, then it would be better, but we're not. And those are lessons that we learn. But I'm a great believer in that actually complaints help you get the service better. Because when people stop complaining, we don't actually know, we think, oh, great, everything's solved, but it actually isn't. They've stopped complaining because they think, what's the point? So, it's encouraging. I will say, and I know it's going to be taken on board sometime, but, the new case manager thing, iCasework, if it can be on our phones, that would be really appreciated, Jess. And I know I'm not the only one who's thinking like that. So, I think, yes, you're right, Terry. It's not great, but you need to recognise where we came from 2 years ago, where actually you wouldn't have even had a report like this because they wouldn't have had the information. So I think I think we should be positive about it.
Brilliant, thank you. Terry? Sorry, Councillor Paul, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I just thank you, Sarah, and you are absolutely correct. In terms of for residents listening outside, there's a specific to improve the response for councillors who get casework from residents. There is a system which we provide for councillors. It's in its first phase. Me and Jessica had a conversation on Monday afternoon. We had a conversation, and there are some other improvements on it. So Jessica, one of our actions from that meeting was to take that away, and we are on it. But just to give us some confidence, we are looking at the mobile functionality. We are looking at, so if a resident emails you some pictures or whatever, it's easier to put that on. And also it's easier to take their emails and stick it in the system. And there are some other things just behind it I'm not going to go into, just to improve the system. So I can assure you they're on point, and Jessica might want to add to that if I haven't covered it off, Jess.
Sorry, on mute. No, nothing much to add. Absolutely right. It is one of the things we're looking at. We're fixing. We've been fixing a range of sort of snagging issues with that system, and more to come. Particularly the use on mobile devices.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say again, it's a great report, but I think what we got to understand is that we're on a journey, and that journey is always about improvement. and that resident experience. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, the residents got to be at the heart of anything we do. And I think what I've noticed, we are really, really improving. And I think the IT systems that we're putting in place and using technology a lot better. I think it's great. And I think it's a journey that we're going to continue to improve on and get better and better as we get, you know, as we start dealing with our complaints. And I think even in my own service area, you know, we talk about RMS, but I think, you know, every service area here is on a journey. We are going to get it right, and we are going to improve our services and make them really great. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks. Okay, so if there's no more questions or comments, if you turn to page 384 and we'll vote on the recommendations. So 2.1, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to note the Council's performance in complaints handling through the municipal year 2020-21 and the actions underway to further improve performance. Councillor Lee Parkway.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Lewis.
Agreed, Chair.
Mohammed.
Agreed, Chair.
Assa.
Agreed and noted, Chair.
Councillor Beckles.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
And Councillor Charlene McLean agrees. Thank you.
Never a teacher.
No, I read to my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the voice comes from. Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
No, I was just thinking about.
Okay, right. Nearly there, we're nearly there. So the last agenda item even is EMR sites, Bidder Street, Canning Town purchase and disposal. And I must remind members that there are exempt papers on this item. So if there's anything that you wish to discuss on that, we'd have to exclude the press and the public. So please be conscious of that. Over to Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. As I've said in my lead member introduction, at its simplest, this is just a simple transaction, and I'm speaking really to members of the public who are watching online. But I will, in terms of context, root this transaction in what we've been trying to do. We have various strategies on how we're going to improve the borough. As Councillor Mohammed constantly says and reminds us, we're on an improvement journey. And one of those things, we have to make the borough better for our residents. And there are two real big streams in our future work stream, which for residents outside, in the last couple of weeks, we've passed them at Cabinet and you can refer to them there. But this is about making sure that the assets of the council are used for the benefit of its residents. And more importantly, as the Mayor would say, and the Mayor has made clear many times, there is a future of digital for us as a borough, and we need to get right. And also, I can't remember, there's an event where the Mayor is speaking called Newham Sparks this week, and that's a further demonstration. But yes, we've got the issue there, but we have to right size our organisation to make sure we do it. But this is in a sense, you could say a dry property transaction. However, it does enable us to unlock our assets for the people of Newham and also to position ourselves for the future. And I will say in final remark, I want to pay tribute actually to Conrad and Giles and the team sitting behind this, because this has been a tremendous piece of work. It's been some of the biggest reports I've ever received, which I have to read. And I really want to pay tribute to Giles and the team who diligently have made sure this works. So I want to put it on record and thank you for the team. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Conrad, do you wish to add anything?
Nothing to add, Chair, except that it's all Giles's work. Our director of property, huge hear from him, but it's very kind of Councillor Paul to bring me in there, but I had very little to do with it.
Thank you. Giles, as this is all your work, do you wish to add anything to this at all?
Chair, I don't think I possibly could.
Okay.
But I'm extremely happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Giles? No? Okay.
That's all
Oh, hello. Did you wish to ask a question? No?
It was, if I may, Chair, and also I'd like to endorse the congratulations and thanks to Giles, but just really wanted to ask in the context of this paper, given its significance, what were some of the most kind of like challenging aspects of it, and what does that represent in terms of our ongoing learning as an organisation? And are you able to elaborate on why this is such a good deal for the council and in turn for Newham residents?
Yeah, okay, so let me start with, let me start with the challenges, I suppose. And the challenges are, I suppose, have been at various levels. At a transactional level, there's a number of different parties involved. We've got a purchase and a sale all happening at the same time, and we've needed to ensure that there's no risk or liability potentially attached to the council in connection with that. So that's, I suppose, a technical challenge. But we've been very conscious all the way through that there is a wider opportunity here. So we've worked very hard with the purchaser to ensure that what's being proposed will deliver investment into the data and technology sector, that the quality of the jobs that will be brought in as a result are at a level that will provide opportunities for learning and potentially connections with academic institutions further down the line. And then we're also conscious that the location of the site is adjacent to the Leeway Walk, where, Mayor, you are very closely involved in promoting investment into the new bridges across the river. And again, we've done what we can to ensure that this transaction serves that project as well. And so we've had to look at this at a number of levels, which, yes, has been challenging, but that's also part of the satisfaction of being able to do something that's not just a pure property transaction. In terms of our learning, and I have to say the sort of, when we're dealing with external, highly commercially focused parties, getting them to understand the wider benefits that we're seeking and the way in which the council operates can be difficult at times. But I have to say it's potentially also played to our advantage. And why is it such a good deal? I think because we've understood their needs as well as the council's needs. And they have a particular requirement to be in this location. The people that we're buying from have a particular requirement to move. And at its most basic, we negotiated very, very hard. We moved our net capital receipt to a multiple of 3 times what was originally offered. And we did that by negotiating with both sides and understanding not their desperation, but what this site meant to them, as well as what the opportunity meant to the council.
Brilliant. Thank you, Giles. I hope that answers your query. Yes. Right. So, yes.
I'm so sorry. Just one quick follow-up. So I very much appreciate the response by Giles, and I just wanted to follow up with just one question. In terms of the proposal as set out in the recommendations that cabinet members physically present are required to determine, I just wanted to ask what mitigating factors have been considered and will be put in place with regards to the Canning Town site, the purchase. I've just been noting, and separately, I have alerted officers at Planning Committee of some of the resident concerns with regards to this issue. And I just wanted to get a sense from either the lead member or the officers, be that Conrad or Giles, if they're able to advise on any mitigation measures to respond to those anxieties that have been raised by residents.
Councillor Paul, did you have anything that you wish to add, or just hand straight over to officers? Yeah.
Over to officers.
Giles.
Yeah. Mayor, I'm assuming that the concerns relate to planning matters. I haven't seen what the particular concerns are, but running in parallel with the discussions on the property side, the purchaser is currently in pre-application discussions with the Newham planning team, who are looking at it from both a broader policy context, but obviously also the more local impacts in terms of design and scale of what is being proposed and how it links into the adjoining site, which, as you all know, is being brought forward for residential development. But the specific comments, Mayor, I haven't seen.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you, Giles, for that clarification. Okay, so if there are no further questions from members, we'll vote on the recommendations on page 435. 2.1, the reasons set out in the report and in the accompanying appendices, Cabinet is recommended to agree 2.1.1 to the purchase of land known as EMR North at 164SZ, the property, from the current long leasehold owner, previously UK Number 1 Limited, by means of the council taking a surrender of Previous's long lease of the property for the amount in exempt Appendix 6 and otherwise on the terms set out in Appendix 2 and exempt Appendix 3. And 2.1.2 to the disposal of the property by grant of a new 250-year lease to the purchaser or its subsidiary on the terms set out in Appendix 4 and exempt Appendix 5, to include a transfer of the freehold of the property on completion of the proposed development of the property, and 2.1.3 to delegate to the Corporate Director of Resources, in consultation with the lead member for Corporate Services and the Director of Legal and Governance, authority to complete the transactions, including to finalise the detailed legal documents pursuant to the heads of terms in Appendix 2 and exempt Appendix 3 and Appendix 4 and exempt Appendix 5, including any non-material amendments to the terms required during preparation of legally binding contracts. And that's easy for me to say. So, Councillor Beckles, do you agree?
I do agree, Chair.
Councillor Mohammed.
Agreed.
Councillor Rees. Agreed. Councillor Lee Parkway. Agreed, Chair. Councillor Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Assar. Agreed. And Councillor Shirley McLean agreed. Okay, so that's the last agenda item to be agreed. Thank you very much for coming, Giles. And thank you very much to all of the residents that have watched us here today on YouTube. Thank you, councillors, officers. Thank you, everyone, because it's a loving today. Meeting is closed.